So the reason this slide came about is coming into this role, you know, I was putting myself in a position, and I've been in different industries, and I was thinking, okay, someone wants to export a product to New Zealand. What process should they follow to do that? And obviously it depends industry specific, whether you're frozen or fresh or ambient, chilled, or whether it's whether you're in wood or frozen fruit, for example. It might change a bit, but there can be a generic process to find out about the best way to export and what you need to do to export into New Zealand. So, and I've put this list past another industry expert, but it gives a broad framework. If we just follow step by step. So step number one is check the MPI site. And in the following slide, what I've done is I've put the website link so you can just go straight to that and then follow it through, the steps through, to find out what is required and is there a pathway that meets the IHS standard to import into this country. Frozen's easier than fresh in agricultural products. So, and then two, check New Zealand Customs site for restrictions and the approval process. Third, HACCP certification relevant for food. Some food can get in without HACCP certification, so that's something else you could look at, especially with frozen. Is your labelling NZ compliant with GS1? Is it compliant there? If it can't be, if the labelling, if the challenge is doing it from supply country, possibly you could do it here in New Zealand. Step number 5, ensure production, resource and financial capability. Once again, that financial capability comes up again. And like I alluded to before, Richard from Business Link Pacific can help with certain templates in that area. And also Pacific Trade and Invest, like I mentioned before, have templates for that. 6, establish trading structure, legal, including IP, tax and operations. 7, select cost-effective freight options. Now the Incoterms, you know, is it best to do it FOB, CIF? Where do you take the risk? Do you want to take the risk with reduce the risk by FOB or free alongside, or do you want to carry it all the way through for CIF? And CIF might be required to get to a market. You go air versus sea. We know about all of the disruptions that we've had. If some clients have reported by sea, just to keep the credibility of flow and product in from the Pacific Islands to meet the market. Do you go LCL, consolidated, or FCL, ambient, chilled or frozen? Now, one of our key partners, we've got a presentation tomorrow, EIF. They can do start to finish from collection, clearance, delivery, customs and biosecurity compliance. Because once again, from our meetings with them, it's come up quite a few times that they've mentioned to us, if only they came to us at the start, we could have saved them a lot of money. Once again, if they only came to us at the start, we could have saved them a lot of money and any surprises. So they're a great point to start, EIF. Select cost-effective warehousing and distribution model. Now, there are different options there. Once again, EIF could help with that. We've got Jay from Ashon Ventures who's presenting later on, and he'll talk about what they can do as well. The warehousing distribution, if you use a third-party provider, can be quite expensive. So that needs to be thought about carefully when you do like your cash flow and P&L to enter into the New Zealand market. Step number 9, registering with New Zealand Customs and MPI as if you're an import fooder, and if you're an import importing food, then register as a food importer. And lastly, if required, secure a local export license. So moving on to the next slide. As I mentioned before, this slide here, if you utilize these links, can give you a step-by-step, as best possible procedure to find out where, you know, your product or services qualify and what's the best process to go about it. So if you work through this list and you have any feedback to us over time, please forward it on to me. Be very interested. And with if you go down to step 10, export licenses may vary product by country, and your local relevant ministry can assist with that. Okay, with labelling requirements, this targets specifically New Zealand, and I'm assuming other markets, for example, like Australia, would be consistent with this. It must have a use by and packing date, product name or description must be on there. It must have a barcode for retail. The name of the physical address of the manufacturer, the importer, and the distributor. A postal address is not sufficient, so it has to be physical. Warning and advisor statements of certain ingredients are used, such as eggs, gluten, nuts, etc. And there's a certain size requirement for that. A list of ingredients from largest to smallest amount, including water. Use and storage instructions. Nutritional information panel. Country of origin. It must be labelled in English. Additional languages are permitted. Label information must be legible and predominantly displayed in contrast with background. There's certain particular specific information that if you contact us later on following this presentation from GS1 that can help with this in more detail. But this is the guideline. And here's an example. So date best before, you know, that's step number one. That's key priority, is the best before. Organic turmeric powder, this is an example. Barcode, manufacturer, the physical address, the warnings, description 100%, organic turmeric powder, use and storage instructions, laboratory results, country of origin, Cook Islands, label in English, labelling rules, information. So that points out an example. And that concludes that presentation. Like I said, please feel free, if you want any more information on that, contact us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohan. Could you just leave your slides up on the screen for a sec, please? Yeah. So to those who are online, the points Rohan illustrated here about labeling, this is specific to the New Zealand market, of course. And Rohan, your slide before this as well, please.
That one?
Yeah, the checklist. Yeah, checklist. I think some of these points will come through in more detail in the following presentations, and we'll answer some of the questions that I'm seeing popping up on the Q&A function. So I'm just